This story starts with me and my wife being happily married. We have two wonderful daughters, aged 13 and 10, and we had what I believed was a pretty healthy relationship. However, at some point, things started to feel strange. She became overly attached to her phone, deleting the saved passwords on our shared computer, and abruptly ending phone calls when I entered the house or the room. You can probably guess what it looked like. With 15 years of marriage behind us, I hoped it wasn't what it seemed to be so obviously. One day when my wife told me she was going to spend time with the girls, I decided to follow her. As expected, I found her driving to a hotel to meet with someone I'll call Peter. It was more than just a gut punch. I cried for a whole hour without stopping. Once I was done wallowing in self-pity, I thought about getting even. Various scenarios involving me aggressively confronting Peter crossed my mind. However, I eventually opted for a more civil and legal approach, but just barely. So, the first step of my plan was to gather evidence. Instead of hiring a private investigator, I came up with a better idea. While my wife was at work and the kids were at school, I installed some small hidden cameras and microphones that I had purchased. I even managed to set one up perfectly overlooking our bed due to our bedroom setup. However, I made sure not to use them while I was at home. After a few days, I suggested to my wife that the weekend after next, I should take the girls on a trip to a place I won't disclose, and we could spend a night there too. It's worth mentioning that due to her demanding and often exhausting job, and our different interests and talents, I had always been the main caregiver. I took on the role of cooking and played a more active part in raising the girls, showing them a lot of patience and attention without spoiling them. So, it wasn't unusual for me to take the girls on a trip alone. This detail will become important later in the story. Over the next 2 weeks, I got everything in order and contacted a lawyer to create a separation agreement that would grant me residence and custody. Finally, I went on the trip, trying not to reveal anything to the girls, and waited to see if Peter and my wife would fall into the trap. When I came back, I reviewed the recordings from the weekend, and indeed, it was a 36-hour closeness fest. When they weren't ducking, their conversation was even more intriguing. I learned that Peter had a wife, but I'll share more about her later. But what was even worse was that they discussed me in their conversations. In addition to the expected comments about my physical attributes and how I failed to satisfy her, there were some really hurtful remarks. For instance, she shared some of my deepest secrets and shameful stories with Peter, things I had only confided in her just so they could mock and laugh at me. By this time, I was certain about what I needed to do. The following day, before the kids left but before my wife also left, I confronted her with the video evidence and gave her an ultimatum. Either she signs the separation agreement and leaves the house, or the girls will receive a detailed explanation of all the cheating details. I want to make it clear that I had no intention of actually following through with the threat. I love my daughters too much to put them through that. However, I did use the bluff to put pressure on her, and she was too emotional to see through it. She went through all the stages: denial, attempts to negotiate, threats, and anger. I allowed her to go through all of it. Eventually, she signed the separation agreement, and that same evening, she left after saying her goodbyes to the girls. I didn't show or tell the girls any explicit details. I've always been honest with them, and that's why I was their favorite parent. So I simply told them that Mommy had been unfaithful. It took some time for the younger one to understand, but my older daughter got really upset. She had just gotten her first boyfriend, though it's not a clear term at that age, but she was mature enough to be furious. This could be important in a potential custody battle, as she agreed to give up custody for now, but I feared, and I was right, that she might try to fight me for the kids. What I didn't expect was for her to use her visitation rights to badmouth me. Basically, she started telling my younger daughter that it was all my fault for not forgiving her. Her lawyer even began demanding that she should get custody, though she couldn't receive money or the house due to being caught cheating, which matters a lot in divorce proceedings in my state. So, I finally put my revenge plan into action. I decided to take a trip to South Carolina. Why South Carolina? Because I really wanted my daughters to see Fort Sumter. I definitely didn't go there because it's one of the last places where Revenge X movies isn't illegal, and where I could upload my wife and Peter's escapades on a famous X website and other similar sites without facing prosecution, as it wasn't illegal when and where the acts took place. I sent the links to my wife's employer, her clients, and everyone in her line of work just to be sure. I also sent the links to Peter's wife and his firm. Peter soon went through a divorce. I feel sorry for his wife as she was an innocent victim in all of this, but I think it's better that she found out. As for my wife, this was the end of any chance to get custody. She soon got fired from her job of 8 years. While the Revenge X video part was a mean move, it couldn't be prosecuted in South Carolina, so it only reflected negatively on my personality in court. However, my wife's unemployment, being blacklisted in her profession due to being on an X website, and the girls, especially my older daughter influencing the younger, stating they wanted to stay with me, made it clear who would get custody. Since she was unemployed, I received no alimony, but I make enough money to support both me and the girls, and I can handle a full-time job while caring for them, as they are old enough to allow me to do so. Several months later, my wife is still unemployed, though I'm not sure if it's because of her movie or the virus situation. The girls are growing up just fine, and they don't seem to mind not seeing their mother. The last time I communicated with my ex-wife was on Facebook, where she told me how I ruined her life and her relationship with her daughters, but honestly, I think she earned it. I'm a 40-year-old woman, and my husband is 42. We got married when I was 22, and he was 23. So far, our marriage has been great. We have a 12-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son together. However, recently, I've been having a strange feeling that my husband might be in love with my sister. Just to provide some background, my sister, who is 43, has always disliked me. Even though she was our parents' favorite while we were growing up, she held this hatred towards me and always took away things I loved. For example, when I was younger, I enjoyed playing soccer and was good at it. When my sister found out, she also started playing soccer, but she wasn't better than me, not to brag. One day my sister injured her ankles, and somehow she blamed me for it. She told our parents, who believed her because she was their favorite. As a result, they banned me from playing soccer ever again, even though it wasn't my fault. Additionally, she took my first boyfriend and bullied me at school, but I didn't speak up and mostly kept to myself. Now, recently I had this feeling that my husband might be in love with my sister. When she got divorced, she immediately called my husband, and he went to her without any hesitation. It's always been like this. Whenever she needs him, he's there for her without a second thought. About 2 months ago, our 12-year-old daughter broke her arm, and both my husband and I went to the hospital with her while our son was at his friend's place. When we got back home, my daughter asked if she could have McDonald's, so I went out to get it for her since she really wanted it. She also wanted her dad to stay with her, as she's always been close to him. When I returned home with the food, I saw my husband leaving with our daughter crying and pleading for him to stay. I rushed over to find out what was going on, and he told me he was going to my sister's because she wasn't feeling well. I was upset and asked why he was going there when our daughter had just broken her arm. He only replied that his sister needed him and left. This made me extremely angry, so I packed bags for myself, my daughter, and my son, and we went to stay at my aunt's place. She was the only family member who agreed that my sister was difficult, so I spent much of my childhood with her. 2 days later, I had to return home because I forgot my work computer. When I got there, I was shocked by what I saw. My husband and my sister were on the couch in our family home, engaged in something they shouldn't have been doing. As soon as they saw me, they hurriedly dressed up, and my husband rushed towards me, insisting that it wasn't what it appeared to be, and that it was all a big misunderstanding. I yelled back at him, asking how he could betray me like this, and if I didn't matter to him, and I yelled that I wanted a divorce, and then I left. After reaching my aunt's place, I went straight to the room where I was staying and couldn't hold back my tears. I feel lost and don't know what to do next. Despite asking my aunt not to, she's already told our parents and many family members about the situation, which makes me both upset and relieved, as I didn't have the courage to do it myself. My husband and sister have been sending me a lot of text messages, but I've been ignoring them. I'm really unsure about how to break this news to my kids. Update. One part of me was feeling sad and considering forgiving my husband for the sake of our kids, but the other part was filled with anger and wanted revenge. I explained to my children that things weren't going well at work, which was the reason for my sadness, and they believed it because I still couldn't bring myself to tell them about their father. I didn't mention this in the previous post, but my sister and her ex-husband, who was really attractive and a genuinely nice person, I'm sorry, but it's the truth, got divorced because she had been mentally offending him throughout their entire relationship, and it had recently escalated to physical offense. That's when he had enough and decided to divorce her. Because of who she is, she fabricated a lie, claiming that her husband was the one being offensive and other untrue things. I got in touch with her ex-husband to have a conversation and asked if he wanted to seek revenge. He agreed, and we made arrangements to meet at a public cafe. During our talk, we discussed how offensive she had been and how he also suspected she had feelings for my husband. I shared what I had witnessed, and together we decided to begin our revenge plan. We began by reporting my sister to the police for the offense. At first, the officer was doubtful, but there was evidence, including a bruise she left on him and threatening texts she sent. The police said they would pursue the case and advised us to hire a lawyer before sending us home. Following that, I withdrew all the money from our joint account and moved it to my own. Since I owned the house, my plan was to evict him. I then hired a lawyer and initiated the divorce process. I knew it would be a tough and lengthy battle, but I was determined to do whatever it took to escape from this terrible man. A few days later, I sat my kids down and shared everything with them. My son was really angry, but my daughter didn't believe me at all. She accused me of lying, and I reassured her that even though she thought that, I wouldn't prevent her from seeing her dad. Later that same day, I arrived home from work to find my parents, my husband's parents, and my aunt all gathered together at her house. I had no idea this was happening. It turned out my aunt had reached her breaking point with my sister and decided to spill the beans to the whole family about what I had witnessed. She also revealed that my sister had been in and out of jail, and my aunt was the one who bailed her out each time. My parents were really angry and started shouting, expressing their disappointment in her. My mom even slapped her tightly and said they never wanted to see her again. Regarding my husband's parents, they expressed their disbelief, saying they never imagined he could stoop so low, especially considering his mom raised him as a single mom before meeting his stepdad, whom he referred to as his dad. Then, my daughter stood up and yelled at her dad, expressing her strong dislike for him and declaring that she never wanted to see him again. She ran upstairs to the room she shared with her brother at my aunt's house and slammed the door behind her. My son gave his dad a look of disappointment and then followed his sister upstairs. My husband knelt before me, begging for forgiveness. I gave him 2 days to pack his things and leave the house, warning that I'd call the cops if he didn't comply. He started sobbing, pleading that he had nowhere else to go. His parents had made it clear he wasn't welcome back there. I remained firm, expressing my desire for a divorce. Eventually, he agreed and left with teary eyes. 2 days later, I returned home with my kids. They hadn't been to school since our conversation and were finding it tough, especially my daughter. I sat them down and held them in my arms, assuring them that we were strong and would overcome this challenge together, no matter what. I promised to always be there for them. They both broke down in tears, and we stayed like that until they fell asleep. Later, I woke them up and took them to their beds, then went downstairs and had a breakdown of my own. I knew I couldn't let my kids see how much this was affecting me. I had to stay strong for them. I heard the doorbell ring, thinking it was my ex-husband, but it turned out to be my sister's ex-husband who came to visit. He comforted me with a hug as I cried, expressing how overwhelmed I felt about handling everything on my own. He stayed the night, and when I woke up, he had made breakfast for me and my kids, and they seemed to enjoy his company. He asked if they wanted to go somewhere special, and they were unsure, but he convinced them, and they eventually agreed, hurrying off to get ready. I thanked him warmly and hugged him back, expressing my gratitude. For clarity, my sister's ex has always been close with my kids. After they left, I called my lawyer and had a conversation before meeting with them. When I returned home, what I saw almost made me cry. I noticed that Thomas had ordered their favorite takeout and was sitting on the sofa, eating it, while my daughter snuggled up next to him, with red eyes from crying. Quietly, I took off my shoes and jacket and entered the living room, wearing a big smile on my face. My son rushed to me, giving me a big hug, and then we all sat down together to enjoy the night. Afterwards, I had a conversation with my kids, and we agreed to start seeing a therapist. Thomas was supportive and encouraged them to give it a try since he was already seeing one himself. My husband has been bombarding my phone with texts and calls, but I decided to block him. That's the latest update. If anything changes, I'll let you all know. Since then, my kids haven't spoken to their dad, and I also cut off contact with my parents. I also got tested for STDs and the results came back negative. Update. My daughter is doing her best, and by that I mean there are times when she comes to either me or Thomas crying about how much she hates her dad. On other occasions, she goes to her dad seeking comfort. I don't hold it against her, and I never will. It's heartbreaking to see her suffer so much. All she wants is for our family to be together again, but I know it's not possible because the damage has already been done. Sometimes she has episodes where she becomes emotionally overwhelmed and seems disconnected from what's happening around her. Occasionally, she slips up and calls Thomas dad, which isn't a bad thing, but I could never date my sister's ex, no matter how terrible she may be. It's just something I can't do. Regarding my son, he has been emotionally closed off. I sometimes find him crying alone at night, and I go to comfort him with a hug. We talk, and I stay with him until he falls asleep. This is the only way I can truly understand how he feels because he rarely communicates with me, no matter how much I try. As for my ex, he completely ended things with my sister and hasn't spoken to her since. He found a well-paying job after getting fired from his dad's company, and he now lives in a nice house. It turns out he had been saving money, just in case I found out about his affair with my sister. My daughter informs me about all of this, but I never pressure her. She wants me to know what's happening in his life. My son doesn't talk to his father and doesn't visit him, and I won't force him to. My ex has been trying to contact me and sends flowers and gifts. I accept them because I don't want to waste things. Despite everything, I still love him, and it's not easy to let go of those feelings. Based on what I've heard, my sister is living in her car and working at a very low-paying job. I want to clarify that if she becomes homeless, I'll help her because I can't bear to see her on the streets, especially knowing how dangerous our town can be at night. Thomas has been a tremendous support for all of us, and he's just wonderful in every way. One more thing about Thomas is that he discovered he is bi and started dating a guy named Logan not too long ago. Logan has also been a great help, and my kids adore both of them. While my son fully loves them, my daughter is growing closer to them every day. I met this guy, and we've been talking and working out together a lot. He ignites the same spark in me that my ex used to when we were dating. I'm not saying I'll start dating him, but he brings me a lot of happiness. I haven't told my kids about him yet. That's all for now, and I'll keep you updated if anything else happens. Thank you all so much for the love and support. It means the world to me, and I love you all so much. Hey everyone, I posted an update not too long ago, and 2 things that received a lot of attention were 1. Me accepting gifts from my ex, and 2. Helping my sister in the future. Let me address the first one. I don't throw away the gifts from him because I don't like wasting things that are perfectly fine. Thomas came up with a good idea, suggesting that I could donate the gifts to a women's shelter or orphanage. He usually gives me flowers, teddy bears, or jewelry, which I won't use, so I'll be giving them away to others who might appreciate them. Regarding helping my sister, I don't mean inviting her to live in my house. Instead, I'm considering giving her financial assistance. In my country, it's really dangerous for women to be alone at night. I'll only help her if my parents don't step in. I know what she did was wrong, but I can't just stand by and watch her face harm or danger. Edit. Don't worry, I would never let that awful person close to my kids, especially not Thomas. She ruined her life, and the only thing I'll make sure of is that she keeps her car and nothing else. No contact with us. I wouldn't cause the people around me more trauma than they already have. Regarding my ex, we have no future together, and I'm determined to make sure he understands that. Someone mentioned that my daughter might be saying things to her dad, and I hope she is. I want him to know how much better we're doing without him. As for the money he saved up, I don't want it. I have a well-paying job, and my kids always get what they need when they need it. So, we don't need his help or his tainted money. That was everything for now. Have a wonderful day, you guys. And again, thank you for the support. You have no idea how much you've helped me. I grew up with a single mom because my dad passed away when I was only 2 years old. Throughout most of my life, I focused on my career, and my mom supported me in that pursuit. However, at the age of 20, I met my ex-girlfriend, and we started dating. We were initially colleagues, but she mentioned that she would soon work in a different sector. Later on, she met another guy at her new workplace and claimed to be in love with him while still being in a relationship with me. I only found out about her infidelity when she admitted to having closeness with him after a girls' night out with her friends. I immediately broke up with her and asked her to leave. A few hours later, while trying to process what happened, my mom called me and started shouting, saying that she hadn't raised me to act like this. I was confused and asked her what she meant. She told me that my ex-girlfriend had accused me of cheating on her and claimed to have proof of it on my phone. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I tried talking to my mother, explaining that the opposite is true, and she was the one who cheated on me, but she didn't believe me. Part of the reason might be that she and my ex-girlfriend genuinely loved each other. I never had an issue with their relationship before. I actually liked how well they got along. However, my mother called me a liar and threatened to disinherit me from her will, not wanting a cheater as a son. She said she never wanted to see me again. Later, my grandparents called me, expressing their disappointment in me and suggesting that I deserve any bad things that may come my way. You know what made it even worse? I discovered that my cheating ex-girlfriend continued to meet with my mom after everything she had done. All of this was incredibly painful for me. The only person who stood by my side was my best friend, and he was really angry with my ex-girlfriend. I talked to him, and he hugged me while I cried in his arms. I know some people might find it unusual for two guys, but his support helped me tremendously in getting through this tough time. 1 year later, when I thought I had moved on, the doorbell rang, and I opened it to find my mom with tears in her eyes. My emotions came rushing back, and I couldn't hold back my tears. I slammed the door shut and angrily asked her what the heck she wanted here. She said she wanted to talk to me and that she was so sorry. After she begged for 15 minutes straight, I finally gave in and opened the door again. She told me that my ex had admitted to cheating when she was drunk. My mom apologized sincerely, realizing that she had failed as a mother by not believing her own child. I told her that I accept her apology, but I don't want to see her right now, and I may never be able to forgive her, even though she begged me to. In the past few months, she has been calling me daily, claiming she just wants to hear my voice. She says she misses me, apologizes again, and asks if I could come over. Her voice always sounds pained, and she constantly expresses her love for me. She knows I might hate her, but she can't bear the thought of that. To be honest, I don't hate her. She's still my mom, but our trust is shattered. I can never fully trust her again because what if I enter another relationship? What if she believes someone else over me again? I appreciate her efforts, but I can't forgive her or even see her right now. I hope she understands that I need time to heal and process everything. Update. After reading many comments yesterday, I decided to meet with my mom today to clear things up. I texted her and she didn't hesitate. She showed up at my door within 15 minutes. Many of you made good points about what I should ask her. Although she called me several times, we rarely had a proper conversation. So when she came over, I sat her down in the living room. There, I asked about my grandparents, her will, and if she's still in contact with my ex. She explained that she had informed my grandparents, and she expected them to call me, but it seems they were too stubborn to do so. She also assured me that I am still in her will. Then she started talking negatively about my ex, claiming that when she found out about the affair, she punched her so hard that my ex lost a few teeth. I find it hard to believe that particular detail, but I thought it was amusing to hear nonetheless. She said she told my ex to duck off and kicked her out of the house. She began apologizing again and expressed that she knows how badly she messed up. She understands that I may never trust her again, but she's determined to do everything she can to make things right. She revealed that her past experiences with infidelity made this a sensitive topic for her, and admitted that she regrets not believing me or listening to my side of the story. I stayed quiet as she explained all of this. Then, I asked her how I could be sure I could trust her now. I questioned what would happen if I faced a similar situation and if she would just abandon me again. She assured me that I have her word, but I replied that her word doesn't mean much because I don't trust her in the first place. She didn't respond adequately to my answer and continued pleading for my forgiveness. I told her that for now, I can't forgive her, and I might never be able to, but I do see her efforts. If she wants me back in her life, she needs to demonstrate that I can rely on her. She started to tear up, trying to hold back her tears the whole time, but eventually, she couldn't hold it in and broke down crying. In a whimpering voice, she asked if she could at least give me a hug. I agreed to that, and she promised to make things right, no matter what it takes, before she left. While I'm somewhat touched by how much she regrets her actions, I'm really worried about my own reaction to all of this. When she broke down and I saw my own mother crying on the floor, I didn't feel anything. I wasn't sad, angry, or happy, and I couldn't show any empathy for her. It was just too difficult for me. Throughout the year of having no contact with her, I had refused to go to therapy, but maybe it's not too late to consider it now. Update. Hey everyone. Some of you may have been waiting for an update since my last one was 4 months ago, so I've been going to therapy, and I feel much better now. However, that doesn't mean I've forgotten what happened. I have to admit my mom has really improved herself. Last month, when I moved into a new apartment, she immediately agreed to help, even canceling important work appointments to be there for me. She calls me almost every day to check on me, and even brings me lunch at my workplace. She visits me at home just to see me, and says she wants to hear my voice. Despite her efforts, I still can't fully trust her, and I'm unsure if I ever will, but I do acknowledge her attempts to make amends. She also spoke to my grandparents, and they apologized, but I don't really care about them. They were still unpleasant even after the truth came out. Some of you might be curious about my ex. The last I heard, she was cheated on by the guy she cheated on me with. He saw her as just a fling. It's just hearsay from my best friend's friends, and honestly, I don't care about her at all. Though, if it's true, it would be some great karma. Today was a significant day for me, and I hope I made the right decision. My mom has been visiting me almost every day after work, sharing about her day and asking about mine. She's always concerned about how I'm feeling and if she can help with anything. Today we had a genuinely good time. We watched a movie, she cooked for me, and it was an overall wonderful day. I can't deny it. Every day when she left, she hugged me goodbye, but I never hugged her back. I was still cautious. However, today, when she hugged me, I finally hugged her back and told her that I forgive her. My heart was pounding hard and fast when those words came out. It took a lot of strength for me to say this because I had no idea how she'd react. Just a few months ago, I couldn't have imagined saying those words. At first, she looked surprised, but within seconds, she broke down in tears and hugged me, thanking me repeatedly. I felt a bit lost and didn't know how to respond. She kept expressing her love for me and how proud she is to have me as her son. She acknowledged her terrible mistake in doubting me and feeling awful for ever thinking I could cheat. She assured me that she'll always be there for me and promised to call me tomorrow. I'm not exaggerating when I say the whole moment felt like a scene from a drama movie, but I'm okay with it. Yes, she made a terrible mistake, but I can't hold on to this unforgiveness forever, especially after witnessing all the efforts she's put into repairing our relationship. This might not be the update some of you wanted to read, but I feel good about it, and that's what matters most.